Where did I hear it? I mean, I read it. You think I've read it, hopefully. Or a tutor told me. You know, who told him? There's no actual grounding here, is there? You don't actually get anywhere. You know, things are just narratives. They're just stories that we make. Just hope they work, because that's the thing about them. They just work. They don't work for any reason. There's nothing beyond them. They just work. And the same with science. You know, you all think of science. Well, it's tested, isn't it? You know, because we know that there's colourful in grass, because you get some guys in white coats and they show a test tube to you, and they tell you what chlorophyll is, and you believe it exists, and it's not some sort of animal spirit which makes it green and all this sort of stuff. So you just believe it, you know. And then you ask for his evidence, and he gives you his evidence. And you say, fair enough, but what proves his evidence? You know, it's inductive. Science can't prove itself. You know, it's not like deductive reasoning. 2 + 2 = 4. You know, you're just playing with words and you show that they define each other. Like, well, that's actually logic and maths and exactly the same, but I don't know the difference anyway. But yeah, it's just inductive. You've got loads of things, evidence and stuff, and then you make conclusions, and you just hope they're right and they're not falsified in the future. You know, but you don't know they're true. There's nothing which verifies them. Nothing verifies anything. Things can only be falsified, and even then, that's according to Lyotard, no real standard of way to judge knowledge. Knowledge works if it works. You know, that's the way it works. And when he means knowledge, he doesn't mean scientific knowledge. You'll see this again. He also means things like aesthetic knowledge and moral knowledge as well. So people in certain parts of America, the reason why they don't stab each other is you ask them, they say, well, God told me not to. So where we say, you know, well, why don't you stab someone? You say, well, I'm quite a cool, collected person, you know. And there's a completely different way of understanding morality, you know, between the two people. You know, one who's quite dogmatic, and the other one who's quite just wants a cup of tea and just hopes the 9 till 5 goes quickly. So, yeah, so that's generally the narrative work. So going back to knowledge and power. So, he has also, this is his gig he has earlier. So, how does this narrative then work? How does knowledge then work in modern post-industrial societies? And you've got this big, and post-modernity generally, if you read Deleuze and capitalism, schizophrenia, there's a general hatred of capitalism going on, because they're intellectuals. So, and they're generally quite clever people. So capitalism solves the scientific problem of research funding in its own way. So this is how capitalism creates narratives. This is how narratives in capitalism works. The state and our company must abandon the idealist and humanist narrative of legitimation. So the modern idea, the one by Auguste Comte and Descartes, that learning for its own sake and will improve the human soul by it. The humanist narratives, in order to justify the new goal, which will be improving the system, the way the system works. That's what the new goal is. You know, administration. If it doesn't work, if you're teaching kids, if it's off the syllabus, you're teaching them Shakespeare instead of, I don't know, how to use Facebook now, is it? You know, something silly like that. You won't be a teacher for long. You know, capitalism doesn't work like that. It works by improving the performance of the system. So, in the discourses of today's financial backers, it also eliminates competition. In the discourse of today's financial backers of research, the only credible goal is power. So, we've got to understand power not just in saying ways of developing new weapons to subordinate our enemies, but this also works in a capitalist model as well. So, if you're a scientist, you need funding for your research. You really, really need funding, and then Kellogg's come to you, and Kellogg say, okay, we're going to fund your research. And the scientist says, great, can I have loads of money? And Kellogg says, okay, we want you to research that sugar is good for you. You know, that's how it works. And that's not a lie. Not completely, I don't know. I can't get, I'll not be able to get access to those documents, but you can see how the relation to capitalism and power and all these things connect together, just for that completely made up and scandalous example. So scientists, technicians and instruments are purchased not to find truth, but to augment power. Exactly the same. I'm excluding the case in which force operates. I think he even does himself here, by the way, but others you may disagree. I'm excluding the case in which force operates by means of terror. This lies outside the realm of language games because the efficacy of such force is based entirely on the threat to eliminate the opposing player, not on making a better move than he. Now, I can have debates at the end. I've just threw this in there because it's one thing I think he kind of contradicts himself here a little bit, because he says that fair enough that you're not playing chess if you don't win chess if the other person's got you in checkmate. You say fair enough, bang, and now you've won chess. No, that doesn't really work. I can see what's happening there, but it doesn't seem to work in that sense when you are I don't know, with the Kellogg's example, we're always trying to eliminate the other competition, no matter how, think of the mafia. There's the Kellogg's, if there wasn't the certain bureaucratical systems of the police service and all these things, they would, if they could, they'd probably plant a few bombs around Nestle. But they don't, because Nestle are probably quite another strong power as well if you do the same, and they've also got legal powers as well. They could fight each other in a court instead of going on war. So I'm not so sure about that, but it's an interesting thing. It's just to put it there to think about as well, how force is related to language, because there's three things we've got to consider here. There's the descriptive statements that we said, there's the aesthetic statements, there's the moral statements, and they're all within language, and there's also force. And his force and his power, something separate from, it's hitting someone over the head, different from saying, I don't like you, I mean, they both give a type of message, certainly. One also, and they both come with certain types of pain. If it's Valentine's Day, so I just for Lyotard, it's not that much of an issue for him, but he says no. It's just something to think about. It comes to play with Habermas anyway, but there's a difference between terror and force, because force to Lyotard, as we understand, agonistics underlies his whole, the way the language works. Terror is just force without language, it's just elimination, it's intimidation. So science, then, there's nothing outside of science, there's no general way that you can understand science and things. Science is a model of an open system. Remember the rhizome, there's no sort of, you can add things to it, and stuff, you can take things out, but there's no thing governing it. There's no meta-language, there's no meta-narrative as well, take your time. It's an open system in which a statement becomes relevant if it generates other statements and game rules. Science possesses no general meta-language which other languages can be transcribed or evaluated. That's his idea of science. Has anyone ever read Kuhn or Feyerabend? If someone wants to talk about Feyerabend afterwards, that'd be really cool, because I don't know anything about him, but it's quite similar, I think. I don't know. A recognition of the heteromorphous nature of language games. This is generally, now again, that's his science, his social ideas. A recognition of the heteromorphous nature of language games is a step in the direction towards social justice. So here now comes to the idea of social justice, but fair enough, this is the way your language works, you have to live with it. This is the difference between postmodernists and deconstructionists. Deconstruction, Derrida, philosopher who undoes all sorts of things like knowledge and stuff, and he kind of stops there, but he doesn't create any sort of positive ideas of the way justice should work, the way knowledge should work. The postmoderns do, and this is what Lyotard is doing, and he calls it justice by paralogy. Paralogy is opposed to homogeny, creating loads of separate independent things, and enjoying these separate independent things instead of trying to homogenise everything, and trying to bring everything together and relate everything together, which is what we naturally do when we're writing essays, isn't it? We're trying to make things connect, aren't we? We're trying to think, well, how does this connect to this? And trying to rationalise everything. Yeah, it doesn't really work. So we might as well just live with it. It seems neither possible nor prudent to follow Habermas. He's having a good go again. It's throughout the book, by the way, and it gets quite bitchy towards the end. Really, in treating... sorry, I'm glad I saw that first. In orienting our treatment of the problem of legitimation in the direction of a search for universal consensus. This would be to make two assumptions. That it would be possible for all speakers to come to an agreement on which rules are universally valid for language games, where it is clear that language games are heteromorphous. And two, the goal of dialogue is consensus.